What if I told you that one of the biggest threats to manufacturing growth today isn't the lack of investment? It's not a lack of technology, it's not automation, and it's not even foreign competition. In fact, manufacturers are investing, new factories are being built, and workforce programs are expanding, and companies continue preparing for future growth. Yet across the UK, a different challenges emerging. Planning systems are slowing projects, regulatory complexity is increasing, and manufacturers are having to create their own talent pipelines. This week, four manufacturing stories reveals a much larger trend. The systems surrounding manufacturing are becoming just as important as manufacturing itself. So, welcome to the Industrico, where we analyze what happened, why it matters, and what manufacturers should do next. So, let's begin. Looking at our first story, the Medicines Manufacturing Skill Centers has now completed two successful years supporting workforce development for the pharmaceutical manufacturing sector. At first glance, this sounds like a simple workforce success story, but there is a deeper lesson here. The manufacturing sector is increasingly being forced to build talent rather than simply hire it. For decades, many manufacturers could assume that the labor market would provide the workers they needed. That assumption is becoming increasingly unreliable. Advanced manufacturing requires technicians, engineers, automation specialists, quality professionals, and operators with high specific skills. These skills often take years to develop. That is why programs like this are becoming strategically important. Looking at who is affected, pharmaceutical manufacturers obviously benefit, but so do suppliers, equipment manufacturers, healthcare providers, and ultimately patients who depend on resilient production capacity. Now, let's talk about immediate impacts. A strong workforce pipeline helps reduce hiring challenges and improves workforce readiness. Manufacturers gain access to the better trained workforce and can scale operations more effectively. But the long term impact is even more important. Companies that develop talent pipelines today will be better positions to expand tomorrow. The biggest risk is that workforce development fails to keep pace with industrial demand. The opportunity is that manufacturers who invest early can create a long term competitive advantage. So, what manufacturers should do? Develop apprenticeship programs, partner with colleges and universities, invest in internal training, and treat workforce planning as a strategic function rather than a HR activity. So, the insight that you can draw from this is the factories of the future will not be constrained by machines, they will be constrained by talent. Now let's move to our second story. Industrial leaders are calling for a major overhaul of the UK's planning system. Why? Because manufacturers argue that approval times and administrative complexity are delaying industrial investment. Think about it in this way. A manufacturer may have a capital available, a business case approved, demand identified, and technology selected. Yet, if approval takes years instead of months, growth slows dramatically. This matters because industrial investment is increasingly competitive. Countries are competing for factories, competing for supply chains, competing for advanced manufacturing investment. Execution speed matters. So, looking at who is affected, manufacturers, investors, construction firms, local economies, workers, and suppliers all benefit when industrial projects moves efficiently. Immediate impacts include project delays, increased costs, and uncertainty around investment timelines. The future impact could be even larger. Regions with faster approval systems may attract great industrial investment. Those with slower systems may struggle to compete. Looking at the risk and opportunities, the risk is lost competitiveness. The opportunity is significant industrial growth if planning reforms improve execution speed. So, what should manufacturers do? Build planning risks into project timelines, engage local authorities early, and ensure expansion strategies account for approval complexity. So, insight that you can draw from this is manufacturing competitiveness isn't only about production efficiency, it is increasingly about execution efficiency. Our third story focuses on regulatory complexity. Manufacturers in the UK pump sector are navigating increasingly complex compliance requirements. Now, regulations serve important purposes. They improve safety, support environmental goals, and establish industry standards. But they also create operational challenges. Every new requirement increases documentation, reporting, testing, monitoring, and administrative workloads. So for smaller manufacturers, especially, this can become a significant burden. So who is affected? Pump manufacturers, industrial equipment suppliers, engineering companies, distributors, and end users. Immediate impacts include higher compliance cost and increased operational complexity. Future impacts may include great industry consolidation as companies with stronger compliance capabilities gain advantages. The risks are obvious: higher cost, more complexity, reduced flexibility, but opportunities also exist. Companies that master compliance can differentiate themselves from competitors. So, what manufacturers should do? Invest in compliance expertise and monitor regulatory developments and integrate regulatory planning into strategic decision making. Insight that you can draw from this is compliance is no longer simply a legal requirement, it is becoming a competitive capability. Our final story highlights a very different theme. Legrand, UK, and Ireland has opened a new electronics manufacturing facility in Cramlington. This is significant because it demonstrates continued confidence in manufacturing investment. Despite economic uncertainty, despite planning concerns, and despite regulatory complexity, manufacturers are still investing. Looking at why this happened, demand for advanced electrical and electronic products continues growing. Manufacturers are preparing for future opportunities. And who is affected by all of this? Employees, suppliers, customers, the local economy, and the broader manufacturing ecosystem. Immediate impacts include increased production capacity and economic activity. Future impacts include stronger industrial capabilities and long term growth potential. The risks include execution challenges and market uncertainty. The opportunities include innovation, productivity gains, and expanded manufacturing capacity. So, what manufacturers should do? Continue evaluating the growth opportunities, invest in productivity improvements, and prepare operations for the future demand. So, insight that you can draw from this is the willingness to invest remains strong, but the challenge is navigating the environmental around that investment. So, when we connect all the four stories, a clear pattern emerges. Manufacturers are not standing still, they are investing, training workers, expanding facilities, but preparing for the future, but workforce availability, planning systems, regulatory complexity, and execution speed are becoming increasingly important competitive factors. The next decade of manufacturing success may depend on as much on navigating systems as operating factories, and the companies that can do both effectively will have a significant advantage. If you found this analysis valuable, subscribe to the Industry Go for weekly manufacturing intelligence. Every week, we break down the most important developments shaping the manufacturing, supply chains, automation, industrial policy, and global industry. And if you are a manufacturer looking to grow your business and strengthen your digital presence, our agency helps manufacturing companies build growth systems that support the long term expansion. You will find the details in the description below. So, thanks for the watching, and we will see you in the next Industry Go Manufacturing Intelligence briefing.